before I began to conduct initial interviews, I felt pretty good and confident. Thought it would come quite naturally as we'd done some before at uni for practice and also on other placements. And I thought that I would find out everything I needed to know easily without going in with anything at all. I was wrong with that. So I started my first initial interview and I realised I was quite nervous beforehand and a bit underprepared, which I realised when I was doing it. I think I was nervous because I actually had to find out a lot of information, and I was probably nervous because I was worried that maybe they wouldn't be as open as I wanted, or they wouldn't like me, or that I couldn't find the information that I needed. So my approach to initial interviews is more informal, because I thought if I was more informal, the person might open up and want to have just a general conversation and not feel as though they're being assessed. However, I feel maybe I was a bit too informal, and I let the conversation take its own course a bit too much rather than sticking to specific information I had to find out. I think it was really difficult doing an initial interview with two students present. For our first one, we decided we would go together, I think because we were both so nervous. We're both trying to ask different questions, and I felt like what I wanted to ask first, or the information I wanted to find out first, was different to what my partner wanted, and I felt like the flow was slightly interrupted during our first initial interview. I think if I was to go back and do it again, probably plan what questions we might ask, like have a list of questions and kind of the order that we might kind of stick to, so it's a bit more structured, and guide us so that we're on the same page and we know what we're both trying to talk about first, and just make it more like a better flow. So I felt like when I was asking questions and trying to find something specific out using like probing and expanding on what the person was telling me, my partner would start to ask questions about something else, obviously that was on their mind, and it was honestly frustrating. Although I know it's not her fault, it was just something we should have liaised about beforehand and been better prepared for. For the next time we did the interview, we decided we'd do them separately, so we both went to one resident each. And I felt this way I found out a lot more because the flow was just a bit better. I was able to like follow on from what the resident was saying and use what they were saying to structure further questions so that it had a good flow, and I found out exactly what I wanted to know. Although I still feel like I missed areas because it wasn't as structured as I probably should have prepared. After this interview, my partner and I reflected and we decided that maybe we should use a physical or a visual prompt for us. So I physically drew up like a CMOP-E so I could ensure I was targeting every area and refer to it during our other initial interview. So I wrote the information I found out straight into the model, and then I could see where gaps were, and I could find out about the person, environment, spirituality and occupations in the CMOP-E. This worked way better. Instead of just trying to think of the model in my head because I was nervous, it kind of just fled my mind, and I kind of needed that visual cue in front of me to keep me on track. Our final interview we did together. I felt like it was too long just because it turned into a really general chat about everything and anything. We spent an hour and a half with her and still didn't find out everything we needed to know to target all areas. And I found it difficult to bring her back to the things we wanted to know more about. So maybe next time I'll try to be more confident to redirect the topic of conversation rather than getting caught up in too much general chit-chat. I feel like, though, my micro-counselling skills are well developed, and I'm very respectful in how I approach the residents or anyone that I speak with. This is definitely a strength I can take with me to fourth year placements, and I can be confident with while I develop my other initial interview skills, such as being prepared before I go, and rather than just thinking I know exactly what I'm doing, using like a visual model as a prompt for myself while I'm still learning and practicing, and also just being able to redirect the conversation back to what I want to find out, and also just sticking within a time frame, because I know next year we won't have an hour and a half to do an initial interview. A couple of our initial interviews we had to go back the second week, which was fine for this context, but on fourth year placement we won't have that. It'll have to be done within a certain time. So I think just being more prepared, being able to manage time, and being able to redirect a person back. I think the reason we didn't redirect as much is because we felt bad. The lady was talking about a lot of different things, and we felt like she was really passionate about it, and we didn't want to cut her off because this is the first time meeting her, and we didn't want to seem rude. So I think working on that, being able to redirect in a polite way that won't offend someone, and also just to make sure I get every aspect of information I need within a certain time frame.